Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now is 8:01. So let's start our webinar. This is the first webinar that we organize in the name of Zhejiang University. So welcome to everyone. We have a very remarkable audience today and people, a very remarkable professional architect from China and from Italy. So first at all, let me welcome every one of you. Thank you very much for your kindness and to be online with us today. So this webinar, it is organized by Zhejiang University College of Architecture and Restoration of Historical Heritage. We have some very important partner institution, Polytechnic of Milan in Italy, and we have Professor Marco Bovati as our guest. Zhejiang University of Technology here in Hangzhou in China, and very welcome to Professor Tian Mimi and Professor Li Zixin, lecturer, Dr. Li Zixin. Then we are very glad to have also our media partner, which is Archidocs, a very remarkable media center, which is very helpful in our organization. I am Paolo Vincenzo Genovese, professor in Zhejiang University. So welcome to everyone. It's our great honor to have all of you. Let me introduce the topic of our webinar, and then I will let you to introduce your great idea. This webinar is quite unusual because the name is 4440. It means we invite 8 architects, 4 from China and 4 from Italy. And around 40 years old, so very young, talented architect, young but with a very good experience in design and in years. We all hope more than 40 years, but I also wish that every one of you gets so rich that after 40 years you simply can relax and the design will not be a profession anymore, but just a hobby, just fun. So we live in a very special moment of our history. There are a lot of changes in terms of design approach. We still have somebody who do the architecture in traditional way, using color, scale model, even watercolor, something very creative. But at the same time, we have also artificial intelligence. We have something very advanced in terms of design proposal. So I propose to our guest today to divide their presentation in 2 parts. The first part, it is what they have done in the first 40 years. And the second part will be about the next 40 years, what they intend to do, dreams or vision. This is the philosophy of our webinar today. I remind to all our guests that we have 15 minutes for each architect. 3 minutes before, you will listen some noise, which alert you that your time is almost finished. And at the very end, we will have around 20 minutes of round table. I will try to shut in our round table. Professor He Yong from Zhejiang University, Professor Wang Lei, which will join our webinar a little bit late. And we will have Marco Bovati from Polytechnic of Milano, Tian Mimi, and Li Zixin. So very welcome to everyone, and let's start. The first one is Mr. Zhuan Ziyu. Zhuan Ziyu, is he online now? Because I know that he has some technical problem. If Mr. Gianzi is not online, then maybe we can simply start with Mr. Andrea Vercellotti from Italy. Mr. Vercellotti?
For me, it's fine. It's not a problem. Okay.
Okay, then we switch a little bit because Mr. Giant just called him and he have a little bit technical problem. So thank you very much to come.
So, yeah,
15 minutes. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen. I hope everybody can see it. Okay, so hello everybody. Thanks for the invitation, first of all. My name is Andrea Vercellotti. I'm 41 years old, so I'm inside the topic of today's seminar. Let me say that my presence here, I mean, inside the topic you have proposed, I think that the most interesting thing I can tell you is my personal experience that in a certain sense I took the chronometer, okay, show how the profession of architecture is changed in the last 10 years, especially in the last 5 years, from my point of view, at least in Italy, and how in my professional and theoretical academical life, I've done so many things. I've been architect in so many different ways that in a certain sense, I think a good sample on how the profession is changing and how our role is changing. So I started 15 years ago, more or less, so my professional life. I started from a very typical Italian dimension, so a small office in my hometown, so very well related to the reality of my hometown with a strong belonging and developing especially small scale, very tiny, very accurate projects in which the main items were history, memory, the relation between the architectural project and the city. So mainly those kind of things. Then slowly and slowly my work is changed, is increased, my professional range is increased. I had 10 years of even academic experience in Politecnico as an adjunct professor of architecture and urban design in Domus Academy, which is another school of design and architecture in Milan, some experiences abroad. But then I think that really the changement in my professional life has been 3 years ago when I accepted a proposal of being a consultant of Arcadis Italia in specific. Arcadis is a Dutch multinational of consulting and engineering, but basically in consulting, specialized in the sector I work with in urban regeneration. That deal from many years, but from a short time in Italy, with big projects of urban transformation, of urban regeneration, related to environmental changes, related to energy efficiency, sustainable and active mobility. So all projects that in a certain sense react to the main item of climate change and climate adaptation. For Italian context, but I think is the same even in other contexts, these last years, so the awareness of this item has produced a paradigmatic change that at the end has completely changed even the practice, everyday practice work. So starting from the topic I've quoted before, history, memory, and these things, now the items are completely different. What is asked to architect, I'm not saying is excluded what I said before, but is mainly related to how we can change, how we can adapt our way of living, and in consequence, our way of inhabiting and of changing the physical world we live in after the main item introduced by the climate crisis we are living. This moment, in a certain sense, have been even certified from my point of view in Italian context, especially by the experience of the C40 Reinventing Cities competitions that started only in Milan a few years ago, but now they are involving even other cities, Rome, Napoli, Bologna. So big projects of urban regeneration, big competition of urban regeneration in which you don't participate as a simple architect, so you don't develop a simple architectural project, but you have to create an integrated group starting from the investor till all the disciplines that are part of this group, of this project, and you have to propose an integrated, a collective project that face big item proposed by the municipalities. In my case, Milan, because I participated to many projects in the context of Milan. This moment has certified in a certain sense that the role of the architect is different now, and there is even a big risk inside this. The risk is to be put on a side by the how to say, by the importance, by the strength of some of these disciplines, especially the scientific, the environmental one. And what we have to do now is, through our professional eyes, is understand which is the new role of architecture inside this new scenario, and continues to make research through projects or through a theoretical activity to understand which will be the language, the architectural language, and the architectural practice inside this new context. We see many, how to say, many, I think it's a completely open item. I see really few convincing projects in this year about this item. We see buildings that become forest, we see trees that become other things. There is the tentative of even erasing architecture sometimes, thinking that copying nature is the solution. I don't think that this is the solution, but is an open item of research, and absolutely we have to work in. So this is more or less my professional trajectory, and I think that through few projects I've selected, you will see how different projects I faced, and how in a different way I'm working with them. I even play a different role in every project. Sometimes I being an architect today. So let me pass the slides fastly. So I started with the very first, one of the first important project that I had to face in my life, which is my hometown. Biella is a small town between Milano and Torino. So it was what I quoted before, the typical project in which an important area, an important building, it was a former monastery with a church, a cloister, and other related buildings, had to be transformed in new functions for the city, especially a museum and other collective spaces for arts, the library for the kids, and other activity. So I've been involved, not from the very beginning, but I entered in this project. The first thing I have to do is to follow the restoration of the facade of the Renaissance church, and then all the projects have been centered in the how to say, in the redefinition of the function of the role of the entire monastery, starting from the cloister that became a sort of open piazza, and then in these drawings you can see. Now I see this drawing today, they seem so old, but they were drawings of 15 years ago. We have to produce a project for some underground exhibition spaces to collect different buildings. So really, this is a very traditional approach, was a very traditional condition. I can show you other images. That was the cloister that was partially renovated slowly by time, was repaved, the building. As I told you, became a sort of open piazza. That's the design for the underground spaces. And then the inside as slowly and slowly transformed in an archaeological museum. So that was really a typical Italian project. Then I had the chance to be part of other very interesting project. This is a project, I was not the main architect, it was a project of Antonio Citterio and Patricia Viel, two designers very known in Italy, but even all over the world. It was another project very related with the memory and with the sense of some historical places. This is a project done in L'Aquila, a city in central Italy, not far from Rome, that was a city damaged, strongly damaged by an earthquake. All the churches were damaged, so were close to their function. The municipality decided to build a temporary church with some temporary functions for the people affected by the earthquake, so houses, a canteen, but trying to, in a certain sense, give a contemporary interpretation of the historical role of churches and their spaces in the city of L'Aquila. So this has been the project. All have been done, all was temporary, so all was done in wood and in prefab. You can see here the typical facade from Abruzzo region, so it was a reinterpretation of all this. It has been a great effort to reconnect this building with the neighbor that was close to, and to, in a certain sense, create, even if a temporary, piece of the city itself. Some images, that's the general maquette and the general project. Another very small project, but in a certain sense I found it very interesting, was the Taiwan Food Culture Pavilion for Expo Milan 2015. It was a very small and simple project, so a wood pavilion, all built thanks to a fundraising, but it Instead of working inside the precinct of Expo, so out of the city, we asked the municipality to be located in the core of the city. So we were located in Piazza Santo Stefano, 500 meters from the Duomo, the Cathedral of Milan, and we used this pavilion to create a sort of small device that produced different hues inside the space of the core of Milan. We can say a word that I don't like, tactical urbanism, but in a certain sense was a small tactical urbanism. All the area was made pedestrian. Different uses were alternate during the year of the Expo. The State University, which is behind that building, so was very part of the project. Students were here to rest, to study. So it becomes a very interesting relation between the architectural object and the uses of the city itself. As I told you, the kind of projects I face and the kind of projects I'm part of really change from passing to the work with Arcadis Italia. I told you I enter in the sector of urban regeneration before as a consultant. Today, from this year, I'm sector leader government, so I am the responsible for Arcadis in Italy of all the big projects of urban regeneration related to private investor and urban authorities. So we make it all over Italy, in Milan, in Genova, in many contexts. I can quote you a few items to make you understand how changed the kind of project. So this was a project, the second classified, a big deception, for the node Bovisa station node. So it was an entire neighborhood to be an entire, infrastructural node, one of the station of Bovisa, to be completely rethought to connect the two sides of the city. So that was the station, but I think is more visible in the next image. I was leading the project Arcadis side. The main architect was One Works, another important Italian firms. Now the effort was again to recreate a connection between the two sides, starting from some environmental items. For example, we decided to maintain the so-called Bosco della Bovisa forest, that was a self-produced forest inside the city of Milan. We tried to recreate a connection between the open spaces. That's a bridge that connects the two sides. This is the station. This is the new headquarters of FNM, a private railway society. At the roots of all this process, we make the coordination between a lot of many approaches that give sense to the project. So from the item of water management to the pollution, even to the dialogue and the social interaction with the borough itself. So all the different disciplines, till the economical items, were merged together and produced this project. You can see that's the main square connecting the two sides. This is the main building in front of. We were asked even to we include the La Scala Theater, so we thought about some performing art spaces in front of the station. That was the result. And as I told you, at the base of the project, each discipline has produced is conceptual diagram, conceptual scheme, here in terms of climate adaptation, in terms of water management. So we tested many solutions, not necessarily technological. We always think that technology is not always the best solution. We try to work directly in the last year is in Bergamo, so not far from Milano. It's called Grass Hub. It's a project that is consists on the objective of converting a former industrial area of the Famiglia Pesenti, which is one of the big names of Italian capitalism in Bergamo, to transform in a hub of functions for the city, from the art spaces to residence for and research center for the university, a sports center, etc., etc. So, okay, I understand the message. The main item was to make the client understand. If you consider the plot at the scale of the plot itself, how to say, it's very difficult to imagine a future for the area. But if you approach it with a wider point of view, you can transform this area in the core, in the connective elements between a lot of very important poles all around the city, which is physically speaking this connection. This red line that will be a so-called cycling highway, so a main infrastructural sustainable mobility net that will connect very important poles for the city of Bergamo itself, creating a system that will regenerate the entire southwestern part of the city in the next decades. So that's the main plan. Here you can see some objective like the previous one: no cars at all on the surface, all the cars go below, complete the paving of everything. It will be an energetical community. So the memory of the place as a productive place, as a place of the industrial history of the city, but including new possible uses. These are some views. It will be completely open to the city, so that will be the main piazza, that will be a sports center. And now what started this summer is the working area is active. For fortune, we succeeded to start. In Italy, it's not always easy to start with projects of this side. Is the contemporary art space for the city of Bergamo. It's a soft intervention of an existing building that will be transformed with just a few adaptments in a center for contemporary arts. That the building, that will be the inside with a garden inside and all the rest. Last one, to stay in time, is a small project, but is very important to make understand which kind of processes we propose to the city. This is a small process in Paullo, a city in the southeast metropolitan area of Milano, a small town that was an agricultural village that is exploded after the economical boom after the Second World War, never producing a center. So we were asked to transform one building. We said to the municipality, we have to transform the entire central district of the village. So we have to create a new centrality for the town of Paullo. So starting from this project, for the project for a new cultural integrated center with the library, with other social activities, slowly and slowly, all these buildings will be regenerated, restored or transformed and rebuilt to create a centrality. Few images very fastly because the time is gone. 40, 50, who knows, years of my life are concentrated in these kind of projects. Projects that in a country like Italy, where more or less the population is decreasing and more or less we are built everywhere, the main item is to give a new sense and to recombine continuously the sense of pieces of the city we will work in. Okay, understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very interesting project. So to conclude, your vision for the next 40 years is somehow to continue this trend, and it is based on a big multinational corporation, complex project, and the role of the architect, it is something like the first violin in an orchestra. Thank you very much for your contribution. Now we pass to the third speakers, because the first one has some little technical problems, so he will come later. Mr. Li Zhongwei, a remarkable young architect from China who will surprise us with a great work. Thank you very much. Mr. Li, the floor is yours.
Oh yeah. So okay. Can you guys hear me right now? So
yes.
Hello guys, I'm Zhongwei Li, and this is my topic. Dirt and heritage is also the first letter D+H is our studios. So to begin with, I'm a landscape architect, which is a little bit different from the architects. We are landscape architects. So as far as other people know, that we are in a crazy dream. So what is crazy dream? This is Shenzhen. It's Shenzhen. This is Shenzhen 35 years later. This is Shenzhen 35 right now. So this city growing super fast. It's just like the growing speed of our countries. And also by the city booming. So we are demolish so many villages, buildings in the cities. We are demolished in super high speed. And we, instead of that, we replaced by a lot of meaningless structures, architectures, and landscapes. So in the following decades, and we keep copying from other countries, from British, European, Japanese, and Americans. So this project is just like maybe 10 years ago. And people think now the Chinese creative things become more creative right now, but I don't think so. because we're still in the copying process. And the people in China always think copy is good, but as far as I know, it's easy come, easy go. It's you copy fast, you build fast, and then you demolish again. So this whole cycle from design to build to demolish and rebuild and demolish again may be happening within 10 years. And this photo is an interesting photo in Nevada. As people call them as a fireman. So it's like so many people gathering in the desert and create crazy structures and has super crazy carnivals. Then they burn the masterpiece after 7 days later. And we think the whole China right now is in the crazy fireman show. And people always said existing is reasonable, but I don't think so. Existence is not necessarily reasonable. Only those that have passed the test of time are reasonable. And that means we don't want to stay in the dreams. We want to be real. That is why we are coming out our topic, dirt and heritage. In the China history, the large scale or small scale, it also shapes our landform, and our landform or our geographies shape our culture, just like what's happening in Chongqing and in Chengdu, and in Shanghai, just like it's a delta. That means people are more like civilized and more like business. And then I think in compare with other designers, keep pursuing after creative things, keep create totally new things. We want to get our inspiration from the past, from the nearly maybe 300 years, 400 years about the heritage, the culture, some details, or some remains from the lives of the past, or we just direct for even longer about landform, how our soil being shaped by the natures. So we are just like people who like archaeologists to searching from the past. This collage is our office photos. Some projects we are working on, some is being built in the futures, and most of them is getting related with these two words. In our ideas, when the scale is getting smaller, small scale, we are more like how to say it's dirt. We are more research on the landforms, land art. About dirt, so just like the project we did in Chengdu, and we created valleys to let people has a different feeling playing in the parks. And we have waters, mist, natures with concretes to shape, bring the nature and some memories back to the cities. We also try our best to mimic how the water cutting the land, how the nature shaping the world. It's just like this landform is just like the Binjiang valleys, which we're trying to searching a way that how the water comes to Chengdu. This is another part of the park. We're trying to create an interesting canal, which mimic the way how people deal with the water in Chengdu, and the children can play with water or with canals just underneath the water level, so in the parks. And the ground level is kind of like undulating, a different base, the ground shape to control how the water shaping the land. See, this is Miss Garden. It's how people enjoying the play and enjoying some memories from the super long history before. We also trying to mimic the deltas, how the river arrive the oceans. And also we have so many middle scale or large scale parks like that. About heritage is how to keep the memories, just like how we reshape some useless engines into landscape elements to let people enjoy it, or we just directly making a pipeline into seating elements or green walls. We recycle useless things into a useful playgrounds. We're also trying to use the leaves to print them on the really boring concrete. We can recycle useless borders and make them into water features. Or even in the concrete, we can use the bamboo to print on those concrete to make them have more memories. It's also even the cheapest material, we still trying to keep some memories or neighborhoods, some lifestyles into the set. Also, even you can see this is concrete step. We try our best to add more details on top of it. You can see how people getting involved in the memory and the design. Even in the night, we are trying to add in more arts in the existing trees or shaping the borders, the existing borders into a linear water features. And maybe everything can be recycled and everything can be redesigned. We also can recycle some to checking the libraries, searching for the photos and making them into new designs to making the real black and white photos and making them into real works. We respect all the trees and trying to let nature and history combine together. Even we can making the hidden ginkgo trees showing to the citizens. We save the dying trees and making them into some landscape elements. We're also trying to add in interesting keeping all the trees and trying to create a site which is subtle and which is decent and which is full of nature and memories from day to night. Even the budget is limited, we can still create interesting heritage stuff. And now we are researching both dirt and heritage in the following 40 years, maybe in the next 40 years. You know what? You know that the real estate is dying right now in China, and the people are waking up from the crazy dreams. And I don't know the Huangliang Yimeng, even I cannot describe with in English super clear, but I think all the Chinese know how this story create. It's like people in disguise in the crazy dreams, and the whole life getting through. And then when he wake up, everything back to the realities. And I don't think we are going to move into the villages. We are going to move to suburban. I think when we will back to the city, we will back to the real life. And in the future, the projects in China will be more complex, more local, and more real. Just like what's happening is have both landscape, mixed use, heritage, and dirt together. Just like what's happening in the Beijing or in Shanghai. This is two projects we are working on. And I think we will not change, and we are stay with reality and keep researching the dirt and heritage. That's it. I'm finished.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. A remarkable project, and your approach is very interesting to me because you are doing a sort of urban archaeology. with your sensitivity as an architect. And about the home law in Italy and in the world, it is very well translated. In Italian, it is translated with the title of Il sogno della Camera Rossa, and in English, it's the room of the red dream, something like this. It's a very famous one of the key classic in the Chinese literature, and I think people who love Chinese culture, they all know this remarkable book, very metaphysical. And thank you very much for your presentation. Really appreciate it, really remarkable. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next presentator, it is a very interesting Italian group named the Orizzontale, translated to English is a horizontal. Miss Nasareen Mohiti Asli. And please, the floor is yours. Share your screen. Very welcome to our webinar.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much for the previous presentation by my colleagues, which were really interesting. And it's always nice to see how the vision can be different and there's no one standardized solution, but there are plenty ways of seeing the world and shaping it. So I will share my presentation, and please tell me if it's okay.
Yes, very clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. So the presentation name is Building Spontaneous Common Grounds, and this word represents a little bit synthesis of what Orizzontale does. I will start with how we define ourselves, how people define our practice. So Orizzontale is a collective. Orizzontale is as well a group of architects, of 7 architects to be precise. Orizzontale is as well a permanent laboratory, is a permanent workshop. We are a practice as well. We do research, and our main research core is public space. And we, as a collective, a group of architects as well, started and continue with experimentation on architecture and on also erasing a little bit the border between architecture and other professions. And but as well, Orizzontale can be seen as a joy of making. So this is a synthesis of what we are and how people see us. And our team is composed, we are a collective, so we started in 2000. Our research while we were still students, and we founded a collective. Our collective is really diverse and is composed by 7 people. We are all different. We are also from other countries. I'm half Persian, half Italian. Juan is Spanish. And from the left to the right, my colleagues are Giuseppe, Roberto, Stefano, me, Nasreen, Jacopo, Margherita, and Juan. It's really important for us to be seen as a group as well as a group of individuals, because both the individual needs and the collective needs are important for our practice. So we were rooted in the city of Roma, and we started from the streets. Our first desire, our first idea was to play with the raw materials and as well to understand which image of the city was running in that moment. So our question is, the question that started our research was, does public space respond to real contemporary needs? First, of being architects, we were citizen, and we were experiencing public space. And as well, the heritage of Roma is deeply rooted on publicness and common goods and public spaces. So So we wanted to dive a little bit deeper in that and to start an architecture practice around that topic. So we started to develop projects on relational public spaces, giving form to both unseen and new images of the city. All these projects have been a terrain of experimentation for new form of interaction between inhabitants and urban common goods, and at the same time, an occasion to reflect on nature of public space and also to test the boundaries of the architectural creation process. So this is why I started the definition of our collective, because what is important for Orizzontale is how things are made. So it's not just a matter of the final design, but it's a matter of the whole process of making architecture. And for us, architecture is a collective effort and entails also other professions, other topics. Our contemporary cities, and I can enlarge it to the contemporary context, is now seeing a revolution on looking at architecture and as to life. So what we do in few terms is to create a synergy between different type of scraps that are produced from cities, from different human contexts, such as materials or forgotten behaviors or uses of the space and the city that in some cases are not possible in public space, and also people which are not anymore involved within the city landscape. And so we try to bring all these components together and recreate and create a public space that is lively, that is spontaneous, and that is also unexpected. So what do? We do build places for free interaction. So for example, we tend not to over-functionalize our design, but we always want to suggest types of inhabiting a place. So in this structure, you can move pieces sometimes, you can create and organize events, cultural events, but as well you can play with the structure. You can imagine, you can be not just a user or a consumer of space, but you can be an active creator as well. Between a balance, of course, I'm sorry repeating it, and chaos, because we tend to put together different elements which can be really diverse and that seems to be far from each other. People from different culture, different languages, different different backgrounds as well, and we then we see together during the architecture project process what the outcome can be. Our structures tend to be open. One of the objectives is to make a future development of the project to happen. So we don't think that our design are finished, but we are more interested in unfinished structure that can, after their first activation, invite other people, other professionals, other architects, artists, creators to do something on them and to feel a belonging to these projects and places. Then with our architecture, we also want to make space to the ordinary and the extraordinary. And in a sense that we want to stage daily life and usually normal, also seen as boring behaviors, like just chilling in a place or having a chat with someone, or just staying by yourself to think, but in a generous way, to be under a shadow. We want to create that kind of benefit from a space, but as well to host and to give the possibility to create spectacular moments of collective memories. Our idea of architecture is to be always in progress, always changing. I found it really interesting, the request of the past and the future. As Orizzontale, our practice is based on present moments. And we believe in the fact that time is the most important factor in architecture. And we believe in structures that can also be adjusted within times. We cannot foresee future, but we can adapt to future changes as well. And we saw it during 2019, but also nowadays, that our reality is always unexpected. And we can also be not ready for the changement to come. So this is why for us in progress, places, opening building sites, and to make them inclusive to people. It's something that architecture should always maybe keep in mind, because the important part of making architecture is the fact that we are creating a place for humans, for other kind of beings, and we are not creating something for an informal matter with no feelings or thoughts. We are doing projects for a massive amounts of people, or maybe, yes, birds or other forms of living, which are creators as well. So, and also, architecture is one of the main components of creating urbanity. So architecture should get help, let's say, from or should create a collaborative process also with other professionals from other fields. So, for example, in opening public works, I'm showing now Prossima Apertura, which means next opening, in which the main core of the project was to make an open design and as well as open up the building site of a public work, which is something really difficult, bureaucratically speaking, because we tend to make public spaces with precise, rigid norms. But the interesting part of this, okay, I'm finishing, is that opening an area of creation also to inhabitants, make and open a dialogue with for example, psychosocial research, biologists or anthropologists, can lead to other images of the cities, and as well can help us as architects to make always better projects and to try to make less mistakes. So this is also for us a vision of the future. It's not a specific still image, but it's a methodology, an approach, and a way of doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting. I was really interested in your work because this is a part of my research which concerned the eco-village approach, social participation, and the bottom-up approach. So your group demonstrated that the project of architecture can be huge, like cities and macro structures, but also can be done by small, little, a very significant insertion in the city life. And I really appreciate very much this I know that you are busy for your activity, so maybe you cannot join our final roundtable. If you can, you are very welcome, but please feel free to go to your obligation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Wu Hailong, the creator of Office Mess. Very welcome to Mr. Wu. Please, the floor is yours. Share your screen, and we are always willing to learn a lesson from you. Thank you very much. I guess you have to unmute yourself because your microphone is closed.
It's clear?
Now it's perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Wu. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm very glad to have the chance to review our work and, of course, to revision the future of the architecture in 40 years. My topic today is 3D community and third nature. This is a very little summary for our office work. Have a very short summarize with the work of architect. I think the architect work is mainly deal with the environment and the space. This is our work. And in terms of environment, we have the first natures, which is primary nature, and second nature, which is artificial nature. But I'm thinking how would we could do more in terms of environment beyond first and second nature. This is very strong conclude in our work. And the second, in terms of space, I think the main work of architect is the organization of space to make it work in different environment. So in terms of the space organization, we have the very flat grid, which I call it 2D space or 2D communication. And we also have the vertical array . 2.5D community, but because it's only array along the vertical direction, it's not wholly 3D, which is our work to make our space work like that. So I'd like to show you some work of my office in terms of the 3D community and third nature. Now you see in the screen is a kindergarten we designed in Shanghai. It's the kindergarten is surrounded by a residential community and have a very bad accessibility and have very bad view. But what we do is we make it like the bonsai in an urban scale and put it into the plot. So we got a very, we call it super toy. It's a spatial toy that people this is basic program volume we have, and we organize the facilities building space in a loop, and we put the classroom onto the loop. So we got the classroom, and we got the leftover space, which we could turn it into multifunctional space. And finally, we have a office building, which is which for teachers. The organization is like the loop and the basic unit of classroom. This is what it looks like in the urban scale. So it is totally three-dimensional, which children can have access to the terrain and have access to the courtyard and the playground, and it can use the garden in sky, and it can run in the circular landscape playground here. This is two courtyard divided by the office building. The usual organization of the building. We have the standard classroom here, which is square, and we have the leftover space below. So in the basic unit, it's like it's very functional, good, very easy to use. And for the leftover interior space, we have some different space with different shape, which we could have it give it different program, like Lego room. This is the corridor, which is also irregular space, but children are very like the space because it have a different possibility and community and the opportunity for children to find the use of the space. And we also have the exterior leftover space, which we could have the sky botanical garden, which people can identify which kind of the plant it is. Irregular space. The next project I like to show is I call it gallery in nature. Actually, it's in a very large artist village, which we also done. We have also done the planning for the community. This is the nature space of the. It's in a valley, have a very different condition from urban space. This is the first visit to the site, and what I like to show is this building. We keep the original land and just put the building slightly on the original land, which we think it's a truly not truly. Which we think it third nature. It's beyond first nature and second nature. It's not just not simply original or artificial. It's a complex of artificial and the landform, and it's like a very soft space over the land. And so we have we can feel the original land from the built environment. This is what we want to show to the visitors. And we also have the tree between the buildings. And all of this glass box, which could give the people in the studio a very wide facade to show the artist's work. Actually, this is every box is it's a studio for craftsman or artist in the art village. The artist very likes the space very much because they find they can show their work in the nature with the largest the facade. And we also have the gap which to show the nature and let nature in. Project I'd like to show it's also the combination of 3D space organization and the intervention of nature and landscape. It's also a kindergarten, but this kindergarten is different from the first one. This kindergarten, the aim of this kindergarten is make it have very low energy consumption. So we study the environment and the arrange of the building blocks to make it the form. It not only follows function but also follows climate. It's on the corner of the very large residential community beside the river, and we study the sun. We study the river, and to make the building like building blocks to have those kind of organization. It's landmark, but it's also landscape. Yeah, let me show a very short animation here. Let me show, make it more faster. This is the interior. In terms of the vision to the future, I'd like to also focus on our topic because in China we have the very high urbanization rate and very low nature growth rate. So the building in 40 years is very different from now. But we also deal with the relationship between environment and space. But we like to face the challenge in this way. I think we could expand the field of architecture a little bit. For example, in terms of the 3D community, I think it connects space more efficiently and more interesting. So we expand the field of architecture through 3D community. And this is what we have done. And we also expanded the architecture field. We want to face the challenge in future with the two strategy, 3D nature and the third nature and the 3D community. Yeah, this is some project with very landscape urbanism to do the urban renewal. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hu. Really impressive. And I'm really interested in your ability to combine nature and architecture. And I think you have a very special talent in terms of space. So in which way the living space of human beings are integrated into architecture and in nature. And in fact, there is no separation in between nature and architecture. That is an excellent example about how the architecture should be. Thank you really very much for your presentation. Very, very impressive, very meaningful.
Thank you.
Now we pass to the next speaker, Mr. Leonardo Mariani, Creative Director and Vice General Manager of Vallaud and Piastre in China. Leonardo is also a good friend of mine. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much to come.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. I will start by sharing the screen first. All right. And thanks especially Professor Paolo Genovese for the invitation. So when we talk about the future, especially we talk about progress, and to me the progress as something has to go along together with the humanity of architecture. I will be more specific later on. Let's a brief introduction about me. I'm Leonardo Mariani, graduated from Politecnico of Milano. I'm Italian. I work mostly from my early beginning, professional beginning, from in architecture, interior design, and design management, mostly architecture. And I have the pleasure of working in many cities around the world: Milan, Rome, Shanghai, and most recently, I'm based in Beijing. Right. I'm currently working since 14 years now in Vallaud & Piastre. There is a French firm that is an international firm and is in China since more than 17 years. With office in Paris and in Beijing, where I work. Along these years, we had the chance and the fortune of working on very big, normally all the projects are large scale and big projects, public project exhibition and so on. And today I would like to take the chance of talk about 3 projects, but I will not talk about the project themselves, is not advertising, is about sharing my experience. So I will talk about this project very briefly in chronological order, also to tell you about the progress that I see and I experience personally. I think to understand the future, the most important thing is actually to look back at our past and to look at what's happening today, and then we can probably foresee what's coming, at least for China. I'm talking now all Chinese project. The first one is in Hainan Island in Sanya, is a duty-free project. So that's the island, that's the project. The project is has been this is around 120,000 square meter and is shopping malls. Is a little bit peculiar because the site itself forced us to split the building in 2 pieces with the central courtyard. This was from the planning point of view. And for this project, I would like to focus on some special features that are related to the advancement of the technological progress in the architectural design. We start from the entrance of the project, where we have very large superscale arches that have been designed thanks to the aid of 3D Rhino. And we work together with also an English structural engineer on this, and we work from China to Paris to the UK to reach this result that at that time for us was like a state of the art. As well, for the overall shape of this building, the movement of the roof and the central courtyard, we start working with environmental software to calculate the wind speed. Sanya is a tropical climate, so we were afraid about the reaction of hurricanes on the project. So we made it in the way that the architectural shape also could respond to the weather. The situation of the site. We integrate the landscape and water feature given the climate condition. It's very hot, it's in the south of China. And here we come to the special, what we call special facade is the and we work at that time very hard with in the Rhino and Grasshopper to study a pattern on this facade that could kind of recall the natural element in a stylistic way. And at that time, that parametric design was for us like state of the art. We work with consultant. To now is for us is kind of a basic work, but it's funny for me to recall how that time it was for us was like kind of science fiction. As well, we is a shopping mall, so we have central courtyard where the shopper will gather. We design a funnel shape like, and at that time we worked very hard on the subdivision, and we manually work on the whole object, and the result is I think far behind what we could do today. But at that time again, it was like one of the challenge for this project, the technological challenge, I will say. At the same time, we are still working on this site because we are now is the phase 2 for this project is currently under construction. The second step, this for us as a firm working in China was a kind of a milestone as well, is about Shenzhen. For the Shenzhen World is Exhibition and Convention Center. This is so far the biggest project we realized delivered worldwide, is 2 kilometers long. Dynamic and rapidly growing city. For this project, again, we had our fair share of challenges, and that have been aided by the technological advancement. The first one was that we want to bring the culture of Shenzhen and bring a very simple and strong cultural elements in the project. So we want, based on the Silk Road concept, we want to bring together this huge project by the roof. So the fifth facade, the roof was actually the key design that was aimed to link the whole project together. So we designed this stripe stripe. We use at the end 7 different colors for this roof. It's something very unusual for any project, the color roof we discover. And at the end, we went to select 7 different colors for a total of 800,000 panels that had been positioned one by one on this roof. In this case, the concept was very simple. It took around 4 to 5 months to translate this design into something that could be built. And then we, thanks to the drones, thanks to our aerial photography, we had the chance to really make sure that what we design on the paper on a very small scale could be realized in a large scale and for real, especially because this project is right next to the Baoan airport. So it's very visible also from the airplane. So we want to make sure that the canvas that we were designing was correct and beautifully done. For this project as well, we work on the structure. So the structure was not just an element supporting the project, was a design element, and with the aid of create these trees that recall again the nature in Shenzhen, the mangroves that are typical trees that they grow over there, and then using the structure, using this the technology. Also, we had the chance to create this huge roof that is an outdoor space, but covers and protect all the people from the sunshine. Shenzhen as well is tropical and is very, very hot. And this oversized tree and this roof, they provide shading for the visitors of our venue. As well, the venue is basically a straight axis, and we had to cover it, but without air condition, because it would be too expensive. It would be crazy to air condition a space like that. So at the same time, the space, we conceive the structure, but also we work with new. This was something very new, so you can compare it with the previous experience with engineering consultant in order to study the sunshine, the good amount of sun protection, but as guarantee enough daylight and protection from the rain, because being a tropical climate as well, you need to create a balance between protecting people from the rain, blocking the sun, blocking the heat, but at the same time providing enough daylight and comfort for the people. And this is the final result of the project that's been delivered now in 2 years ago and is now fully functional. The third one, the third step in this path, again, all these projects are in chronological order, is the Haikou International Duty-Free City. This project for me is especially interesting because it's again in the same island of Sanya, the first project that I present you, and it's kind of the big brother. It's like 5 times bigger. Is still a shopping mall with duty-free and duty-paid, a lot of shops, but it's not only shops, it's a new way of doing a shopping mall because they have a lot of interactive elements, the libraries, the sports center, they will probably going to be a skiing facilities, even it's hot. And it's for this project as well, we kind of step up the game of how we could translate our vision thanks with the aid of the technological advancement of the tools that have been given. So for this project, the whole facade has been designed with these horizontal stripes. That our key feature, and they surround the whole project. That is like all rounded, is very organic. There are a lot of cantilevers and there are a lot of plantations on these platforms. And the goal, the key feature for us from the people view perspective was to guarantee that this facade was something special, and a different scale, a different distance will create different emotions. So what we did in this case, actually what we did in Sanya was times the pattern were done man-made. In this case, we went to a totally different approach. So we studied shapes of on these glass patterns that they surround the project. We study different kind of pattern with different shapes and different gradients, because in some part they need to block the view from what is inside. In some part they need to be transparent. So we really start and study down to the very small details. Thanks also to the parametric design in Grasshopper, we realize a pattern that change like a skin, change according to the function, change according to the location, because sometimes we want it to have this surface is transparent to look inside. Sometimes we want to shade it. So it's a lot of work has been landed in this process of study. As well, we have a tropical, what we was supposed to be a tropical garden. It was is a very big cupola, is a very big space in the middle of the project that is currently under construction. Is 100 meter times 85 meter, totally covered. We went to study the structure together with our engineers and our tools, and we studied different configuration, and we made sure that the structure and the architecture that were studied together in one process. And we study different solution and optimization in order to make sure to have the best result, and also to have something that is buildable and it's the best optimized solution for the client. So this project is currently under construction. We are going to have probably the opening around the end of September, and it's in very fast progress. I will be a little bit fast on the bring the culture element always in, and also as well is try to provide new experience for the people. But all in all, what we see about the future for the next 60 years and more is about the people. And for us, all the advancement that we have in architecture, all the tools that we are given, they're just tools. And they are just tools that will allow you to provide us to realize better and something that we can envision. But again, at the basis of our work is all the people that work with us and all the efforts and the using the smart tool and the right tool to do what we envision. So for all our new project, we will bring our experience, and we starting from this level, we will use these tools again to advance what we can do and create new geometry and new challenges for ourselves. That's all. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Leonardo. I'm very glad to have you in our webinar. Your project is really remarkable because in many cases, this kind of huge project, 2 kilometers long, I even can't imagine. They have a low quality of the details, but in your case, you are able to control both the large scale and the thin details. So this is not easy. So to control the project at every level, very often the Italian architecture are based on small projects, but with a great attention of the little thin details. But in your case, you are able also to generate a project which is really huge in terms of size. So controlling the 2 different sides is not easy at all. So congratulations for your work. Thanks a lot to be with us. The next speaker is Mr. Wangchen Han from China. I'm very glad to have you here. Please, the floor is yours. Share your screen and introduce yourself. Thanks a lot to be here with us.
Thank you, Professor Genovese. And good evening. My name is Wangchen Han, and I'm a 34-year-old architect working in GMP, which is a German firm at the moment. And I'm still doing the education and artistic work in the recent years. And although I still have 6 years to this topic, but the topic I'm going to talk about today is the devolution. Why devolution? I find it is quite hard to forecast 40 years long future. So what I'm trying to do is to show you something already happened in the past 40 years for the first time as a background, and then we should see as history has been changing quite a lot. If you're looking at the Sanlitun in a street view of Beijing, it used to be a 1-floor living area in 1980s, but now it's like the most popular financial commercial center in Beijing at the moment. And also, if another quite example of Pudong, Shanghai, in 1980s, it's nothing. The whole island is flat. But a few months ago, when the Pudong
excuse me, you need to share your screen. You need to share your screen.
I'm not sharing the screen.
No, you forgot it.
Sorry.
No problem. Take it easy. It's a new platform for you. Oh, okay, now it's fine.
Is it okay?
Now it's fine.
Okay,
Thank you very
cool.
much. Thank you.
Okay, cheers. So, if we're looking back, this is Sanlitun street view of 1980s, and this is Pudong, Shanghai in 1980s, and also now. A few months ago, Pudong Art Museum has been finished, so you can see the buildings of different times, all the way from 1980s to now, growing on this island. And also the building materials and the way of people designing the skyscrapers are changing quite a lot. And zoom in what is happening now. We have the war between Russia and Ukraine several months ago. We have Nancy Pelosi visiting Taiwan 2 days ago, and who's been successfully attract the whole world's eyesight. And also we have the COVID-19 thing for already 3 years. So the recent issue of the global relations produced a level of engagement and political debate that is unprecedented in the modern era. You may ask, what does this mean? This means everything sucks now, as in politically. Imagine 3 years ago, you can travel around the world freely. Now you have to do quarantine. It's hard to get a ticket, or the ticket getting too expensive. And probably 10 years ago in China, you can still use Google or Instagram. So I would say this is the devolution in a political perspective. And if I try to bring back this topic to the architecture perspective, this is, everyone knows, this is the Crystal Palace in 1851, which was built in London and for the World Exhibition. It was like 171 years ago already. And this was being built in 2021, which is just last year. And two of those buildings were remarkable, beautiful buildings. I've been working on this building for 3 years, and I think probably more than 300 days a year for already 3 years. And it's a huge project. And if you look inside, we're using the huge steel and glass structure to create this kind of exhibition center, the large space, which were serving for the political issues and also for the capitalism, I would say. So if you put those two buildings together, the Crystal Palace and the National Exhibition Center, they're both beautiful buildings. And also for the National Exhibition Center, I've been spending a lot of my enthusiasm and also my passions in this work. But the thing is, when we were doing this kind of architecture work, the materials haven't changed that much. We're still using the glass and the steel as the main material for like 171 years ago. But maybe you would say the technology, the technicals were changing, the details were changing, but the main we relied on the really professional engineers and consultants. They are helping us to do the decisions. The architects, we do the form design, but what is going to be is their decision. So in this kind of circumstance, when we're doing the design for an urban setting, it is important to understand the bottom line of various developers. When the developers' fiscal interest and the design ideas have been met, the design idea will be fed, whereas the characters of the project will be coming from the contradictions and problems, which means we're still serving the governments or politicals or the capitalisms. I would say if we look at another example of what's happening now is the COVID acid testing pavilion at the moment. It's just coming out everywhere in Beijing, Shanghai, in China, of course, because we have to do it like every 3 days or something. And now we even have a competition for it, which is quite crazy. The point is, we're not having our own voice of deciding what we are going to do at the moment, not like the planning of the city, could be the government of the city. But now we are serving everything else. We're serving the capitalism, we are serving the technology. We're not serving ourselves. So the question I would ask is, how can architect change this kind of situation for the next 40 years? I'm not sure what is going to happen in the future, because I don't have those kind of eyesight to forecast what's 40 years later going to be. So I do have some tests, or I tried some way to do the record that I can share to you. So this is a art installation that I did with my partner Lin Pengxiang, probably 1 year ago, and those are a set of installations we built, and it haven't been built yet because we haven't found any fundings to build this kind of installations. It's just on the paper at the moment because it's talking about the COVID at the moment, but it might be something that could be built in the next 40 years. So the installations, it would be including 4 set of installations. The first installation is a small theater and also I would say a pavilion of a theater and a theater. If you're looking close at the installation, there's like air blow structures behind it. Those things could be the control installation of the fresh air, and each keyboard will be labeled, and you have the exactly keyboard where you can sit to. And also when you sit on that specific keyboard, you can only see 1 or 2 direction that the keyboard allows you to see. And another, the second installation would be air blows. I would say air filter, and the air filter have the cross scheme at the moment because it's the control. It might be the control of the life. It's something that could offer you the fresh air that could keep you from the disease. That is an installation that could control your life from the disaster. And the third installation is a community. This is a community that could allow people to communicate in those kind of whiteboard, and also those kind of whiteboard separate people from each other. It is a small box that you could stay in and to working or to live in during the pandemic. And the third one is a delivery, which could deliver foods or the medicals. It is a transportation of the whole system. So, so the 4 installations could stand for 4 topics or 4 aspects during the beginning of the COVID-19, and they are working. They could work into each other or working with each other, and they could merge into each other, but they are just on paper. Like I said, it's just the installations that that we tried to do in last year. So, and this test would bring us to another topic is, if this is if 40 to 40, the topic is about time. So why not to take a time itself as a design topic, or as a material, or as a how should I say it, as an architecture idea that we could develop. So if you're looking at this picture, it is 2 buildings from 2 sides of the world. 1300 years ago, those 2 buildings appeared at the opposite end of the world. One is Magdara Chapel on an island in Galway, in the west of Ireland. The other one on the right hand is the Isri Shrine in a forest in Japan. both buildings have the same scheme from completely disconnected culture in like 1300 years ago. So the time itself is on those two buildings will become a question if wood and would be rebuilt every 20 years. So that would lead out my project, the other artistic project of Morecambe Bay Memorial Landscape. So Morecambe Bay is a really flat bay in England, which have like 30 kilometers flat bay areas. So the tide coming in and out really quick. And when the tide goes out, the ships and the seafood were laid on this really flat bay. So the birds come in every year, so they have easy seafoods everywhere. But the thing is, 23 illegal Chinese immigrations, 23 Chinese illegal immigrations died on this bay because they were hired to pick up the seafood on this bay, and the tide coming really quickly, so they all died. So I tried to make a memorial for them. Those drawings on the top were were made of a installation, and in a Chinese tradition way, trying to represent the movement of the tide and also the power changing. This is as well. So if you look at the digital materials of this of the Bay Area, what I try to do next is to combine those two drawings together to make another digital drawing and unfold this drawing into an architecture space. And also try to use the traditional way to do the representation to illustrate the memorial stain. And this is a installation I did that I try to immigrate if the sand coming in and out is changing when the landscape is changing with the structures. So, yeah. So those are probably several favorite views that I've been doing. Those are the birds hidings and the entrance of the building. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Really impressive, because what I learned from your lesson is at the same time you are able to create projects which are extremely rational, and like the Tianjin exhibition, which is based on a specific program, cost, timing, and so on, so something very professional, very rational. But then in the middle part of your presentation, you work with a remarkable concept, which to me, it is the real essence of architecture, the form. Which include really in a remarkable way the figures, the artistic sense of the traditional Chinese painting, but with the touch of contemporary art and contemporary architecture. So really interesting. And because you are very young, I'm very curious to know what you are doing for the back. You are very young, very young. So in the next 50 years, I guess, at least. So please keep in touch for the next 50 or 60 years, because I'm curious about what you are going to produce. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
The next architects are Mauro Marinelli and Mirko Franzoso from the studio Franzoso Marinelli from Italy. Very interesting architect, which work with a touch of sensitivity and very, very nice work, very nice ability in the details. Thank you very much. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, right. Correct. Thank you.
I don't see it.
Yes, we can see.
Yes, sorry, but I can't see where is the presentation. So I'm so sorry. Okay, now we can do it. Sorry.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting us here. We are very pleased and honored to be here with such esteemed colleagues. And so thank you very much for the invitation. And all the speeches that we heard before are very interesting and show also the topic of the future in a very different way. We are Franzoso Marinelli. My name is Mauro Marinelli. He's Mirko Franzoso. We are a small firm in the middle of the Alps, in the Italian Alps, and our location is very important to us because it's related to our idea of architecture. We are in the middle of a beautiful, let's say, landscape and a very rural area with not very big cities that surrounds us, and so we have the opportunity of working in very fragile and small contexts. It means that our buildings or our public spaces, because now we are sharing with you 3 of the last projects that we realized in the last 5 or 6 years. And so they have to deal with a very specific context that is very different from many of the contexts that we've seen before in the previous projects, because they all are related to urban environment instead of a rural environment or small villages that are the context we have to deal with. Our office has been nominated for some awards in the last years, and our work goes from a very small scale to urban planning. Sociale in Caltron, we can translate Casa Sociale with community center of a very small village in an alpine valley. And here, as you can see, the building is very small. It's most of all a hall, and we will share you just a few pictures of the building. And we think that this building shows our sensitivity to the landscape and how we want to create something that somehow is blending with the landscape and not in a mimic way, but showing what is artificial always, but somehow learning from the landscape, not only from the natural point of view, but also from the cultural point of view, because the landscape is something that is, let's say, almost completely artificial, because it has been shaped through the centuries by humans. And here we see the small building here and how he tries to play with these rows of apple trees, which is the main cultivation we find in this particular valley. And so the building tries to read this rhythm of the landscape and also to read the shape, the proportions, and the elements of the built-up space that we see here. So the building is very small, very simple, but we hope very precise. It has a basement which deals with 3 different elevations and let's say a pavilion on this basement, which is in wood, large wood, which is a wood that it's changing in its color during the year. This is a picture just a few weeks after the end of the construction yard. So this was the color of the wood on those days, but now it's darkened and almost gray. So this is something that it's very interesting to us because it shows how the time plays with architecture. And also some existing building that surrounds this building are built with the same wood, and now they are dark or almost gray, some of them. So thanks to the time, the building is becoming with the same color of the existing building surrounding. So the time is part of the project, and the time is something that we play with in order to get the result we want. This is the main hall of the building. So you know, the structure is speaking by itself. The building is more or less just a big structure, and all the elements of the architecture are related to the tectonics of the building. As you can see, we play a lot with memory and the history of the place, but not in a nostalgic way, but always in giving a contemporary interpretation of the ancient principle of the building. And this is one of the facade of the building, in which you can see that all is about the structure. This is a large wooden large structure. All these pillars are load-bearing, so what you see is basically the structure of the building. And that's because we are interested in showing the body of the architecture and not creating something that is like a scenography or just an image. We want that materials and materiality of the building play part of the architecture. This is a second project. It's a public space project, and to us this is very important because it is in a very small village, almost completely abandoned. So it has been a pleasure working here, because we think we helped the community to find a place where they can gather finally. And these are actually 3 different spaces at 3 different elevations. They have to deal with the ground, which is not flat at all, because we are in a mountainous area. So we have and each one of these 3 different spaces have a different role and character. A big role has been played by this concrete, which is the washed concrete, and the technique that has been used to build these structural elements, because everything you can see is structural. There's no cladding. Everything is structural. It was very experimental, because we used big stones in the concrete. They are sometimes more than 4 or 5 centimeters. They have sharp angles, and they are in the same stone of the main mountain of the community, because this village owns a mountain, of course, and this mountain is something something very important to the community. Okay, all the people loves this mountain. So using the same material of the mountains, we try to bring the mountain in the middle of the village, and so creating this relationship between the very far landscape and what is very small and you know, very, very close to the people. Here you can see how we try to involve into the space what is the existing buildings, and here we see a beautiful building on the left side with an ancient new benches are enlarged. They are realized with the same wood of the existing buildings, and now you see how the time is making the wood dark and gray, reaching the same color and same materiality of the existing buildings here. So here you see exactly one of the stairs that leads to an upper level, and on the upper level we find this fountain, which has been built with stone slabs that we found in the construction yard that were part of a former fountain that was demolished and just forgotten in the place. The third project we see today is Bolciana. It is another project of public space. Here it's a more complex situation because the village is small, but there is a road and 4 main squares, and we worked in each of these squares with small interventions. These interventions are in white concrete and brushed concrete, so it's very rough and very muscular, let's say. And all these elements, they try to define some thresholds between the road and the squares. With the geometry of the contexts. And every time we try to highlight the edge of the squares like they are rooms, okay? Rooms without a ceiling. The ceiling here is the sky. So we try to just highlight the edges of the spaces with these elements in white rough concrete, defining the threshold that connects the spaces and the road. And sometimes these thresholds, they involve spaces like these, which are covered, and maybe they connect different elevations. And here we see another picture of the project. The topic of the future was very interesting to us, and we tried to reflect on that. And we, of course, as everybody, we don't know what the future will bring us. And probably something we are sure about is that there isn't one future, but there are many futures depending from the places, the culture, and also what the future will bring to us. And probably what is interesting now is that you know, our world is changing very quickly. This is a interesting saying that, because now we are talking, we are sharing our projects to an internet connection. Okay, so we are not in the same room, but we still are part of the same space somehow. And also the reality now is getting more virtual every day. And this is an happening that occurred during the Cinema Venice Biennale in 2018, which all the people are living in the same place, but they are experiencing different places through a virtual reality. So we believe that the future is giving us a lot of virtual experiences in which probably we lose the physicality and materiality of the experience. We think that this virtual reality is very important and useful, but probably in this scenario, architecture can somehow recover our need of materiality, or can help us to involve our body into the spaces, and not only our mind. And that's why we believe that architecture has to be even more related to the materiality and to the body and to the physical experience. In these topics. And that's why we believe that our architecture tries to play with the physical elements, with the materials and with the tectonics, in order to provide us these physical experience of the architecture. That is something that can't be replaced by anything else. So that's probably something makes architecture very special and very important also in a very virtual and unphysical future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really nice, nice work. Is exactly what I was expecting from you. And what it is very remarkable in your project is you are still inside the tradition of the Alps architecture. Because of that place, for people who doesn't have the luck to visit, it is composed by small places, extremely precious, where the light count a lot, where the accuracy of the details of the connection between different materials are very important. Not only, but you mentioned at least 3 times in your presentation how the wood changed the color according with the age. So the project of the architect, in your case, it is not the project of how beautiful is it now. At least 40 years. Imagine for the future, it is a project which started today, but it will stand also for the future. I think that is a very important lesson for all of us. Thank you very much for your work. Now we come back to the beginning, and Mr. Zhuan Ziyu, who has a little bit of technical problem, would like to conclude the webinar of today, the presentation of today. So please, Mr. Zhuan, welcome to our webinar, and the floor is yours. Share the screen, please. Thank you very much to be with us.
Thank you, Professor. Sorry about the delay.
Oh, no problem.
Oh, sorry, I have to choose.
Are you still here? Because your image is freezed. Are you here, Mr. John? Maybe there are some additional technical problems. In my computer, your image is a freeze. Can you try to share the screen, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Okay.
Let's jump to this. Can you see the screen?
Cool. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about the delay.
No
okay. Quickly share some of the projects we have and a little bit background. Sounds like everyone has to introduce themselves in terms of their age. I'm 38. I work for Sita Pelli. After I graduated from Columbia University, but I studied also in Tianjin, in UK, in London, and back in New York, in Columbia. But I studied urban design architecture. So I think that's something really strongly linked to the recent practice. We did a lot of urban design projects, but the current interest for us is more like architecture and interior. But still, I think the approach we have is not only in architecture, but always thinking about larger society and link with the people and the community and so on, even for the interior design. So earlier we did just after graduate, I did a competition in Beijing with one of my classmates. It's talking about what actually like shifting the scale, the inner city, very dense. So creating a kind of like instant landscape. Basically, this is more like a kind of like a installation, more like a creating kind of landscape, and there are certain space below, but also making some calculation mathematically to predict if people can meet together or they can be detached. So this is more like a kind of like like a creating a new network for people to meeting each other, but also offering certain space as an infrastructure, but also giving certain, for example, some parts are higher, then you have a shop, some parts are more open, then you can have a gathering space. So this is like a very early competition we did. But I think this one reminds me a lot of recent projects we have, and that is somehow became a kind of like a identical projects we did. So as I mentioned, we did large-scale urban design, like Tianjin Culture Center with my partners from in Germany, and also earlier, back to 12 years ago, we did a Qingdao railway station urban design, and we win a lot of competitions, public buildings like Tianjin number 4 Mead High School, and of course also the sorry. Sorry. Yep. Just 1 second. Yeah, so also some combination works with, for example, Nishizawa, Maribota, He Jintang, one of the, old generation famous renowned architect, and also us. This is more like a collaboration with independent culture buildings. So each of us, we are more also like organizers for them to connect all of them. So the connection piece is also designed by us. And then, but still, you can see those projects has a very strong, how to say, identity. You call that a German office. You can call that a very practical way. So we try to, identify ourselves, who we are, because we're practicing in China. So we start to look at, what's going on here or what's going on in the past in China. So we pick up a new office, and but basically this is between the Drum Tower and Bell Tower in Beijing. So we're thinking about the the roof. What's the meaning of the roof in China? But they never been used as a space or as the space for us. Visitors, everyone loves it. We had a kind of a online lecture or more like a symposium there, inviting different artists, photographers, and curators. So basically, that's the idea. We insert the interesting point, or more like creating more scenarios in terms of sections and plan. So the scenarios also taking the pieces of what's the memory of the information, those pieces together with the, when you're going in and walking around, you feel that the different, also we take the views can be introduced, for example, the Drum and Bell Tower, which has a history, has a reading context as backdrop, or let's say the information itself of those two towers can be introduced into the space, so that the space itself became more interesting. That's why people are interested in Hutong or in Shanghai, Linong, those kind of like old traditional area. We find out that there are more information being read, being digested together with the space. So if an empty space there, you don't really read anything. And but if there's a certain context, there's a certain stories and information can be digested, then there are more densities of the information. Then that's much more interesting of the space we can find out. For example, we did an installation just introducing one Hutong area. We find a lot of information and interesting stories, but they built a new big tower there, which is an office space. So of course, you don't find those pieces, those urban fabrics and interesting pieces there. So that's a very urban design views to look at. We also did a, we also did research of the densities of those informations and what can be read as layers. This is yeah, so that the layers by layers, then you read more information and you got more experience there in terms of different spaces. So this is more like a different types of viewfinders, and then to frame out, to frame out a lot of layers in three-dimensional space. But if you go back to the Chinese, I don't know, in YouTube or in some other video watching tours in China, there are a lot of these videos. They have comments, they have texts, and the texts and comments are flowing around the screen, and then you read the information. You don't read them in terms of the time. You don't know this is 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago. You don't read them in terms of space. So this is really a vision. I think it's a contemporary, but still that's linked strongly with the very traditional. And every part you can zoom in and you can find a story. You can zoom in more and you find more stories. And all the stories are showing to you simultaneously. And of course, they are not happening in one moment, right? Maybe one story and the other one happened 5 years ago or 5 minutes ago. So this is a really like a vision, I think, for the traditional and also modern Chinese to read the world. So how to deliver this interesting idea into architecture? We're thinking about the sections. So cross sections really deliver not only the where of course traditionally people think the plan deliver the functions, but we think the section also deliver a lot of interesting even hidden feelings or hidden phenomena of the sections. So in one project called Tony Recluse, we have different layers being read from the local architecture, and we're overlapping them, and then from one pitched roof to two. So this smooth change, or a kind of like versus static, right? It's really like a kind of a movement of the roofs of those pieces, and each of the pieces are different. You read them in perspective, and then it really gives you different feeling, or this the movement of those pieces moving ahead, or this view became very interesting. But I think the emptiness is more interesting for us to read the more like a clear diagram to talk to in between. And also for the interior, we have different views looking outside, and high windows, and going up, and floating gesture of the box, and the courtyard in the middle, and then the more like solid space on site. So basically introducing these across different sections, introducing the landscape and the views in from the exterior into the interior makes the space create a more richness of the space. So then you don't have to do too much interior decoration, because basically the relationship of the positioning of those spaces, and then all those independent stories, independent perspective, multi-perspective is what we're looking for. But this is a small building, so usually we did bigger projects. So I was proposing, enlarge that into 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, so that you got a lot of, talking frames, talking views and openings, but you don't really have a building for such a long view. So we made a Chinese scroll. So the scroll, you read them in a multi-perspective way, and you got even more sections, because you got, there are more diverse possibilities. So some of them are the all-day dining restaurants, some of them are big rooms, some of them are pavilions and exhibitional room, some of them are courtyard in the middle, and you have 2 little, apartment and hotel rooms on the side. So that gives this system, from these different perspective views, they look really different. That's also talking about different scenarios. in one big space, well, it deliver a homogeneous quality of this floating gesture, but inside, outside, different heights, you got very different feeling of the space. Yeah, so from this one, jump back to the Chinese scroll painting. We're thinking about, not only that painting, but this one, if you're talking about the topography changing, or also the typological of different layers. Okay, so I mean, just jump really quickly. So that also can be extract into a space and deliver the space, or of course different structure, combination of the concrete and steel structure, but also the exterior, interior being worked out at the same time. But this is really like a the thing belongs to the environment and the mountains on the back, but also it has its own scenarios. For example, the walls, the layers of the walls, the openings of the walls gave you the delivering of the space. You're going ahead, like from 1 yard to another yard. Of course, you have also lower wall, higher wall to separate the space and combine different quality together with the landscape, interior and exterior. So from this and this and this, we create no time, but you see that is more like a production level 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and then so this is the latest version. We did a new project in Chengdu, or you have openings, which is a swimming pool, view windows, and lower part is the restaurant. UCCA new pavilion next to Guangzhou, and also the layers overlapping to extract the pure church geometry and also the cave gesture being softer core. Really popular in China, like 1 week, more than 1 billion click, 1 billion. Yeah, so people love this kind of architecture, and then all of this. So we have a second version. It's under construction, and also that can be installation, like a pop-up store for the Nestle cafe, and also can be installations of this curved shape and but different layers and more like a maze, but cut out. So different height of people have different paths. Also can be lighter installations, and can be something like a bigger scale installations in Shenzhen has been built. So I'll just go through this really quick. That can be also enlarged into even bigger scale projects. We did resort in Baiyangtree. In Xi'an, also under construction, some of the the layers can be stacking up, and also multi-perspective. Just to show, and also can be adapted into some kind of my teaching courses in Tianjin University. 8 students, 8 different locations. They'll be linked as a more like urban connections. Each piece has its own expression, and can be something more like a resort, prototype, research, can be even larger scale, more than 100,000 square meters hotel. I did 8 years ago till last year, finished in Nanjing, Hyatt, Unbounded Hyatt, and also Edigo. But this is more like a resort. Could be also kind of vertical gesture for those. And also can be an urban design as an interior project. It's a luxury hotel we did in Xi'an, and also can be a new type of museum in Beijing, just opened. U2 Museum by UCCA, but this is more like a vertical garden, so different views looking at each other and to offer different exhibitions. We also did that for like Illustrator to express our idea really quickly to people. I think that's it. Sorry.
Thank you very much, but you still need to pay your coin. And you needed to give us the vision for the next 40 years.
Oh, yeah, I have that. Yeah, we did a lot of, as we can see, we did a lot of installations, but I always thinking about jumping out from the visions as architect, what we can do to deliver the final image for the bigger urban gesture, even not beyond the city. So I was thinking about the city finally merged with, of course, we have a script. This is in Shenzhen, Hong Kong Biennale, basically talking about for example, the AI control the world, but it consuming a lot of energy. So the calculation really consume the energy. So basically the shapes we create, like those designs, are really energy consuming. But the basic shape, like the Taihu Lake stone, the shape made by the nature. The water fresh it, and so it forms a certain gesture. So those kind of how to say, the calculation method is really energy saving. So we're thinking about finally the city or the urban space can be more like a natural looking. So this is more like a different types of urban spaces we create. But this is finally it's a movie, so I don't have time to show the movie, but those movie screenshots. This is what we made. And also we have these being applied because I'm also a designer for the Venice Biennale, China Pavilion this year, but for the art Biennale. So basically we design, but this is more like a exhibitional version combined with my artist friends of their visions, but created a small Chinese garden. And this is more like a small scale of those future city model we're talking about. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the vision of the present and the vision of the future. Thanks a lot. What I noticed in your work, which impressed me really very much, is that all of you, all of the Chinese guests, it is very clear also in your work. Well, you really represent a new generation of Chinese architects, where the idea of copy, where the idea of introducing the postmodernist, it is completely gone. Also, you work with a very strong concept. And another things that they really make me very happy and very interested in the contemporary and future Chinese architecture is that all of your project can be done only in China. So you have really the Chinese touch. It is not anymore import of certain kind of language and style and from Western country, but this architecture can be only Chinese. Very good. Congratulations for your work.
Thank you.
Now we open the next and the final step of our long run webinar, and we have the moment of the round table. And so I call Professor He Yong, Professor Wang Lei, Professor Marco Bovati, Professor Tian Mimi, and Dr. Li Zixing in order to give some comments of this remarkable work, both from Italy and China. Because of the time constraint, so I ask you to have only 4 minutes, but I think all of you are very intelligent, and intelligent people, on the contrary of me, speak clear, short, and exact. Thank you very much. Professor He Yong, please, you're first, if you like.
Okay, Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. Wonderful. First, thanks, Paulo, very much. Also, thanks for all the guests for your wonderful presentation. I know